The alien queen wanted my seed, just because I offered her a seat on the shuttle. The accidental gesture Horizon's Edge for 3 years, and he'd gotten used to the routine. Wake up, grab coffee from the human sector, fix whatever broke overnight, eat lunch alone in the observation deck, then back to work until his shift ended. It was predictable, quiet, and exactly how he liked it. That Tuesday started like any other. Marcus was elbow-deep in a malfunctioning air recycler when his comm unit buzzed. "Chen, we need all hands to prep Docking Bay 7, his supervisor's voice crackled through. Got some big diplomatic convoy coming in from the Kaloran Empire. Marcus had heard of the Kalorans but never seen one. They were one of the older spacefaring races, with an empire that stretched across 3 star systems. Their technology made human ships look like tin cans, and their culture was supposedly more complex than anyone could fully understand. By the time Marcus reached the docking bay, a crowd had already gathered. Station security formed neat lines, and Administrator Walsh stood at the front in his best uniform, looking nervous. Through the massive viewport, Marcus could see their ship approaching. It looked like a piece of art rather than a vessel, all curved silver lines and pulsing blue energy fields. The airlock hissed open, and the Kalorans entered. They were taller than humans, maybe 7 feet on average, with skin that seemed to shift between purple and deep blue depending on the light. Their eyes were larger than human eyes, completely black with tiny stars of light floating in them like captured galaxies. They moved with a grace that made everyone else look clumsy. At the front walked someone who could only be important. His robes were decorated with what looked like living light, patterns that swirled and changed as he moved. Behind him followed a younger Kaloran, and even Marcus, who didn't understand alien beauty standards, could tell she was striking. Her skin had a silver tint that the others lacked, and her eyes held more of those star-like lights. Administrator Walsh stepped forward and gave the formal greeting he'd probably practiced 100 times. The lead Kaloran responded in perfect English, his voice carrying harmonics that human voices couldn't produce. "I am Ambassador Theron of the Third Spiral. This is my daughter Liara. We appreciate your hospitality." The formal ceremonies went on for an hour. Marcus stayed because his supervisor insisted all department heads needed to be present, even maintenance. He stood in the back, trying not to yawn, when Administrator Walsh announced that the station's cafeteria had prepared a special meal to welcome their guests. The cafeteria had been transformed. The usual plastic tables were covered with white cloth, and the kitchen staff had attempted what they claimed was fusion cuisine, mixing human and what they guessed might appeal to Kaloran tastes. Marcus grabbed a tray and stayed at the edge of the crowd, watching the aliens navigate human food with polite confusion. He was heading to a corner table when he noticed her. The ambassador's daughter Liara stood alone by the food stations, holding an empty tray and staring at the options with what Marcus could only interpret as bewilderment. The other Kalorans were already seated, but she seemed frozen. Without thinking, Marcus walked over. "First time with human food?" She turned those star-filled eyes toward him, and up close he could see they weren't completely black. Deep purple swirled at the edges. "I am unfamiliar with your consumption protocols," she said, her voice carrying those same harmonics but softer. "I do not wish to cause offense." Marcus smiled. "It's a buffet. You just take what looks good. Here, let me show you." He grabbed a plate and started explaining each dish. "This is pasta, made from wheat. Pretty bland but filling. This green stuff is salad, which honestly, even humans don't get excited about. Oh, but this," he pointed to a tray of fresh bread rolls. "This is actually good, made fresh this morning." Liara tilted her head, a gesture that seemed universal for curiosity. "You would recommend this bread?" "Definitely. Best thing our kitchen makes." Marcus put 2 rolls on his own tray, then hesitated. The serving tongs were clearly designed for human hands, and Liara's fingers were longer with an extra joint. She was struggling to grip them properly. "Here," Marcus said, reaching over to put 2 rolls on her tray as well. "The butter's over. There if you want some." She stared at the rolls on her tray, then at Marcus, her skin shifting to a deeper purple. You You shared your food selection with me? Just showed you what's good, Marcus said, not understanding why she looked so shocked. Want to try the fruit? The strawberries are actually real, not synthesized. Before she could answer, he'd added a small bowl of strawberries to her tray too. There's a quiet table over there if you want to avoid the crowd, he suggested, pointing to the corner he'd been heading to. Liara followed him silently. They sat across from each other and Marcus started eating, pleased to have helped someone out. He was halfway through his pasta when he noticed she hadn't touched anything. She was staring at the food he'd placed on her tray with an expression he couldn't read. Is something wrong? He asked. If you don't like bread, you don't have to. Eat it, I just thought. You shared your food with me, she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. You, a stranger, chose portions from your own selection and placed them on my receiving platform. Well, yeah, you looked lost. No big deal. She leaned forward suddenly. What is your name? Marcus. Marcus Chen. I work in maintenance. Marcus Chen of maintenance, she said formally. Do you understand what you have done? Before he could answer, she stood abruptly and walked quickly to where her father sat with the station's leadership. Marcus watched confused as she whispered urgently in the ambassador's ear. The ambassador's head snapped up, his galaxy eyes finding Marcus across the room. Oh shit, Marcus muttered. What did I do? The ambassador stood and the entire cafeteria fell silent. He walked toward Marcus with that alien grace, his daughter beside him. Marcus stood up, his legs feeling like jelly. You are Marcus Chen? The ambassador asked, his harmonics making Marcus's name sound like music. Yes, sir. If I did something wrong, I apologize. I was just trying to help. You shared food with my daughter. You took from your own portion and gave to her. Yes? She didn't know what was good, so In our culture, the ambassador interrupted, sharing food is not casual. It is the third most sacred act of bonding. By taking from your own sustenance and offering it freely to another, you have declared your intention to provide for them, to protect them, to bind your life to theirs. Marcus felt all the blood drain from his face. I'm sorry, what? Liara stepped forward, her skin now shimmering between purple and silver. You have offered yourself. As my mate, Marcus Chen, and by accepting the food, I have agreed. The tray in Marcus's hands clattered to the floor. Around them, every human in the cafeteria had gone pale while the Kalorans were making harmonious sounds that might have been approval or laughter or both. Administrator Walsh looked like he might faint. Ambassador Theron, surely there must be some misunderstanding. Our cultures are different. Mr. Chen didn't know. Ignorance of custom does not void the act, the ambassador said, though his tone wasn't angry. If anything, he sounded amused. However, since this was clearly unintentional, we can resolve this through formal channels. Mr. Chen must appear before our cultural council tomorrow. They will determine if the bond is valid. And if they say it is? Marcus asked, his voice cracking. Liara answered, her star-filled eyes never leaving his face. Then we proceed with the binding ceremony. You become my mate, and I become yours. Recognized by both Kaloran law and through our treaty agreements, human law as well. Marcus sat down hard, missing the chair and ending up on the floor. He looked up at the alien princess he'd accidentally proposed to and said the only thing that came to mind. All this because I gave you bread? The ambassador actually smiled, an expression that was surprisingly warm despite the alien features. Your people have a saying, do they not? The way to the heart is through the stomach. Perhaps your culture and ours are not so different after all. As security helped Marcus to his feet and escorted him to a private room to discuss the situation, he caught Liara watching him. She raised one long-fingered hand to her chest and made a gesture he didn't recognize. Later, much later, he would learn it meant chosen. But right now, all Marcus could think was that he should have just fixed the ventilation system and skipped lunch entirely. The binding ceremony. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat in his quarters staring at the ceiling, replaying the cafeteria incident over and over. His comm unit had been buzzing nonstop with messages from crew members, everything from congratulations to condolences to requests for interviews from the station's newsfeed. At 0600, his door chimed. Marcus opened it to find two Kaloran guards in elaborate armor that seemed to be made of condensed starlight. Between them stood a human woman in a crisp suit. "Mr. Chen? I'm Sarah Martinez, Xenocultural Liaison. I've been assigned to help you navigate this situation." She looked tired but determined. "May we come in?" Marcus stepped aside. The guards remained in the hallway while Sarah entered, pulling out a data pad. "I've been up all night researching Kaloran bonding laws. The good news is there are ways to void an accidental bond. The bad news is they're complicated." "How complicated?" Sarah grimaced. "The Cultural Council will examine your intent, your character, and your compatibility with Liara. If they find you unsuitable, the bond is dissolved. However, if they find you suitable but unwilling, you can challenge the bond through combat trial." "Combat?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "Have you seen the size of these people? They're 7 feet tall and probably 3 times stronger than humans. The combat doesn't have to be physical. It can be intellectual, technological, even artistic. The challenge party chooses the form." Sarah paused. "There's one more option, but it's risky. If Liara herself rejects the bond before the council meets, it's automatically void. But doing so would bring great shame to her family." Marcus rubbed his face. "I don't want to shame anyone, I just want to fix air vents and live my quiet life." "I understand. But Mr. Chen, you should know that this is bigger than just you and Liara. The Kalorans are one of the most powerful races in the galaxy. Their alliance with Earth is crucial. How this situation resolves could affect billions of humans." Before Marcus could respond, his door chimed again. This time, it was Liara, herself wearing simpler robes than yesterday, but still looking otherworldly. "May I enter?" she asked. Sarah started to object, but Marcus waved her quiet. "Sure, come in." Liara moved into the small quarters, her height making the space feel even smaller. Her star-filled eyes took in the modest surroundings, the single bed, the small desk covered in tools, the one chair Marcus had bought from a trader. "You live simply," she observed. "I'm a maintenance worker, not a diplomat," Marcus replied. "Look, Princess Liara," she corrected. "If we are to be bonded, you should use my familiar name." "We're not going to be bonded," Marcus said firmly. "This was a misunderstanding. I was just being polite." Liara tilted her head. "Politeness? This is why you shared your food?" "Yes. On Earth, helping someone who looks lost is just what you do. It didn't mean anything deeper." She was quiet for a moment, then moved to look out his small window at the stars. "In 300 cycles, no one has ever shared food with me who wasn't family, or officially contracted for bonding. The act requires such certainty, such commitment, that most couples know each other for years before taking that step." "Then why didn't you stop me?" Marcus asked. "You must have realized I didn't know what I was doing." She turned to face him, and for the first time he saw something vulnerable in those alien features. "Because for one moment, I felt what it was like to be chosen. Not for my bloodline, not for political alliance, but simply because someone saw me struggling and wanted to help." The room fell silent. Sarah cleared her throat. "The council meets in 4 hours. We should prepare." A loud crash interrupted her. Marcus's door burst open, and a Kaloran male strode in. He was even taller than the others Marcus had seen, with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that held red stars instead of white ones. "So this is the human who dares claim the princess?" His voice was like grinding stone. Liara stepped between them. "Vexar, you have no right to be here." "I have every right. I was promised your hand by your father 10 cycles ago." "A promise that was never formalized," Liara said coldly. "And one I never agreed to." Vexar pushed past her, looming over Marcus. "You think this primitive can provide for you? Protect you? He doesn't even have proper chambers. He tends to machines like a servant." "Back off," Marcus said, surprised by his own courage. "I don't know who you are, but I am Lord Vexar of the Second Spiral. I have destroyed 17 ships in combat. I own 3 moons. I have the allegiance of 1,000 warriors. He leaned, down until his face was inches from Marcus's. What do you have, human? Marcus met those red-starred eyes steadily. Apparently I have Liara. The silence that followed was deafening. Vexar's skin shifted to a deep purple black, and his hand moved to what was obviously a weapon at his side. No! Liara grabbed Vexar's arm. You cannot challenge him until after the council meets. It is law. Vexar smiled, showing teeth that were definitely sharper than human teeth should be. Then I will wait, and when the council confirms this absurd bond, I will invoke the right of rival claim. We will settle this properly, human. In combat. He turned and strode out, his presence leaving the room feeling somehow colder. Sarah was pale. That was Lord Vexar. He's killed 3 rivals in combat trials. Mr. Chen, you need to reject the bond. It's the only way to stay alive. But Marcus was looking at Liara, who stood with her shoulders tense, her skin flickering between colors he was beginning to recognize as distress. He's done this before? Marcus asked. Killed people who tried to court you? Those who were chosen by my father, yes, Liara said quietly. He believes I belong to him by right of strength. And your father allows this? My father believes in tradition. The strong lead, the weak serve. It is the Kaloran way. She looked at Marcus with those impossible eyes. You should reject the bond. Sarah is right. It is the only way you will survive. Marcus stood up, something hot and defiant rising in his chest. It was the same feeling he got when he saw bigger kids picking on smaller ones back on Earth, the same feeling that had gotten him into trouble more times than he could count. No, he said. Both women stared at him. Mr. Chen, Sarah started, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. This Vexar thinks he owns Liara because he's strong and rich. He's killed people just for wanting to be with her. And everyone just accepts it because it's tradition? Marcus shook his head. No, that's not right. You cannot defeat him in combat, Liara said. He has trained for warfare since birth. Then I won't fight him in traditional combat. Marcus turned to Sarah. You said the challenged party chooses the form of combat. Any form? Technically, yes, but then I'll figure something out. He looked at Liara. I'm not going to let you be forced into something you don't want just because everyone's afraid of some bully with fancy titles. Liara's skin shifted to a color Marcus hadn't seen before, a soft golden hue. You would risk your life for my freedom, even though you don't want the bond yourself? Marcus thought about it. Yeah, I would. Because everyone deserves to choose their own path. Before anyone could respond, the Kaloran guards outside announced it was time for the council meeting. As they walked through the station's corridors, Marcus noticed how different the atmosphere was. Humans and aliens alike stopped to stare. Some Kalorans made harmonious sounds when they saw Liara and Marcus together. Others, particularly those wearing military insignia, made lower, more ominous tones. The council chamber had been set up in the station's largest conference room. 5 ancient-looking Kalorans sat behind a curved table that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight. Ambassador Theron stood to one side, his expression unreadable. Marcus Chen of Earth, the central council member, spoke, her voice like singing wind. You stand accused of initiating a sacred bond without knowledge or intent. How do you answer? Marcus stepped forward. I answer that I did share food with Liara. I didn't know what it meant in your culture, but I don't regret helping her. Murmurs ran through the assembled Kalorans. And you, Liara of the third spiral, the council member continued. Do you accept this bond? Liara stepped beside Marcus. I accept that it was offered freely with kindness as its only motivation. I believe intent matters more than ceremony. That is not what we asked, another council member said sharply. Do you accept the bond? Liara was quiet for a long moment, then she said, I accept Marcus Chen's right to choose just as I ask for my own right to choose. More murmurs, louder this time. The council conferred among themselves, their harmonious voices creating an almost hypnotic melody. Finally, the central member spoke again. The bond is deemed valid, but incomplete. Marcus Chen, you have 3 choices. Accept the bond fully and become mate to Liara. Reject the bond and accept exile from all Kalor in space. Or face any rival claims in combat trial. Before Marcus could answer, Vexar stepped forward. I invoke rival claim. I challenge the human for the right to bond with Liara. The council member sighed, a sound like wind through canyons. The claim is recognized. Marcus Chen, as the challenged party, you may choose the form of combat. Marcus looked at Vexar's confident smirk, at Liara's worried face, at the assembled crowd waiting to see the weak human back down. I choose, Marcus said clearly, a contest of engineering. The challenge of honor. The arena wasn't what Marcus expected. Instead of a combat, the Kalorans had transformed one of the station's cargo bays into a workshop. 2 identical sets of alien technology were arranged on separate platforms, with viewing areas filled with spectators from dozens of species. Vexar stood at his platform looking confused and angry. Engineering? This is not a warrior's challenge. The law is clear, the council elder announced. The challenged party chooses the nature of combat. Marcus Chen has chosen. Do you withdraw your claim? Vexar's skin darkened to near black. Never. I will crush him at any contest. Marcus tried to look confident, but his hands were shaking. He'd spent the last 6 hours studying Kaloran technology with Sarah and a surprisingly helpful junior engineer named Zix, who turned out to be Liara's cousin. Their tech is based on harmonic resonance, Zix had explained. Every component must sing in harmony with the others. It's why our ships are so efficient. But it also means one discordant note can cascade through the entire system. Now, standing before an array of components he barely understood, Marcus wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. Ambassador Theron stepped forward. The challenge is thus. Each contestant must repair and improve a damaged Kaloran shuttle engine. The one whose engine produces the highest efficiency rating wins. You have 3 hours. Marcus looked at the scattered parts. The engine was in pieces, some damaged, others simply disconnected. He could identify maybe half the components from his crash course with Zix. Across the bay, Vexar was already working, his 4-fingered hands moving with practiced ease. He didn't even need to examine the parts. He knew exactly where everything went. Marcus forced himself to breathe. He couldn't match Vexar's knowledge of Kaloran tech, but he'd been fixing things since he was 5 years old. Every machine, regardless of origin, followed certain principles. He started by laying out all the components, organizing them by what he could guess was their function. Power generation here, control systems there, what looked like cooling mechanisms in another group. As he worked, he noticed something interesting. The damaged parts weren't randomly broken. They showed specific stress patterns. Harmonic cascade failure, he muttered. One component had vibrated at the wrong frequency, and the dissonance had spread through connected systems. It was like a guitar string making other strings resonate, but destructively. Vexar was already reassembling his engine, replacing damaged parts with spares from the supply table. He worked with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Marcus took a different approach. Instead of immediately replacing parts, he studied the damage patterns, tracing them back to their source. There, a small crystal resonator, cracked almost invisibly along one edge. This was the original point of failure. But why had it cracked? Marcus examined the housing around it and found the problem. The mounting brackets were designed for Kaloran gravity, which was lighter than the station's. Over time, the extra stress had caused the crystal to fracture. Interesting, he said to himself. What are you doing? Sarah's voice came through his earpiece. Support staff were allowed to observe but not interfere. The engine didn't just break, Marcus replied quietly. It failed because it wasn't adapted for the environment it was operating in. He could simply replace the crystal and reinforcing the mounting, but that would only delay another failure. Instead, Marcus did something that would have horrified any Kaloran engineer. He started modifying the design. Using tools from both the provided kit and some he'd brought from his own workshop, Marcus began creating a dampening system. It wasn't Elegant, human engineering rarely was compared to Kaloran, but it would isolate the crystal from environmental vibrations while still allowing it to resonate with the engine's harmonic frequency. 2 hours remaining, the council elder announced. Vexar's engine was nearly complete, purring with harmonic perfection. He glanced over at Marcus and laughed. The human is adding primitive modifications. He corrupts the pure design. Some of the Kaloran spectators made disapproving sounds, but Marcus ignored them. He was finding his rhythm now, his hands moving with the confidence that came from years of making broken things work again. As he worked, he became aware of someone watching him intently. Liara stood at the edge of his platform, those star-filled eyes following his every movement. "You're not just repairing it," she said softly. "Repair means putting it back the way it was," Marcus replied, not looking up from his work. "But the way it was is why it broke. I'm making it better." That's not how we think about technology. Our designs are considered perfect, handed down, through generations. Marcus finally looked at her. Nothing's perfect. Everything can be improved. That's what humans do. We take what exists and make it work better for our needs. She tilted her head in that curious way. Is that what you would do with our bonding? Take something traditional and make it work better? The question caught him off guard. Before he could answer, an alarm sounded. 1 hour remaining. Marcus refocused on the engine. He'd rebuilt the main components with his modifications, but now came the hard part, making it all work together. Kaloran engines didn't use standard connectors or interfaces. Everything had to align perfectly, not just physically, but harmonically. He closed his eyes, remembering something Zix had shown him. Kalorans could feel the harmonics through their skin, sensing when frequencies aligned. Humans couldn't do that, but Marcus had perfect pitch, a useless talent on Earth, but maybe useful here. He powered on the engine at its lowest setting and listened. There, a slight warble in the harmonic. He adjusted a connector. Better, but still not right. Another adjustment. The sound smoothed out. 30 minutes. Vexar was running his final diagnostics, looking smugly confident. His engine sang with the perfect harmony of traditional Kaloran engineering. Marcus made his final connections, double-checked his modifications, and held his breath as he initiated the full power sequence. The engine came online with a sound, unlike any Kaloran engine he'd heard. It wasn't the pure, single harmony of Vexar's, but something more complex. Multiple harmonies layered together, each supporting the others. It sounded almost like music. Time. Both engines were moved to testing platforms. Vexar's went first, performing flawlessly. The efficiency reading came up 94.7%. The Kalorans in the audience made approving sounds. It was an excellent score. Then Marcus's engine was tested. At first, nothing seemed different. The efficiency reading climbed 85%, 90%, 94.7%, matching Vexar's score. But it kept climbing 95%, 96%, 97.2%. Gasps ran through the crowd. That was supposed to be impossible. Kaloran engines had theoretical maximum efficiency of 95%. How? Vexar demanded. What trickery is this? The lead counselor examined the readings. No trickery. The human's modifications allow the engine to adapt to environmental variables, maintaining optimal performance regardless of external conditions. But he corrupted the design, Vexar protested. He added primitive human technology to our perfect systems. And in doing so, Ambassador Theron said, stepping forward, he achieved what none of our engineers have in 1,000 cycles. He improved upon perfection. The council elder raised her hand. Marcus Chen is declared victor of the challenge. The rival claim is void. Vexar's skin turned such a dark purple it was almost black. This is not over, human. You may have won through trickery, but you have not won her. He stormed out, followed by several militant-looking Kalorans. Marcus slumped against his workbench, exhaustion hitting him all at once. He'd won, but what had he actually won? The right to a bond he hadn't asked for? Liara approached him. That was unprecedented. You didn't just repair or even replicate, you innovated. It's what humans do, Marcus said tiredly. We're not the strongest or the smartest species out there, but we're really good at making things work better. Is that why you helped me in the cafeteria? To make things work better? Marcus thought about it. I helped you because you needed help. That's all. She was quiet for a moment. The council will expect an answer about the bond. You've defeated the rival claim, but you still have the original choice. Accept or reject. What do you want? Marcus asked. I want... Liara paused, her skin shifting through several colors. I want to understand you. Your species. Your way of thinking. You took our perfect engine and made it better by making it imperfect. You risked your life for my freedom even though you gained nothing. These are contradictions. Marcus stood up, looking at her directly. Then maybe we should take some time to figure it out. Your culture has bonding, but humans have something called dating. It's where two people spend time together, get to know each other before making any big decisions. Dating, Liara repeated the word carefully. And if we decide we are not compatible, then we part as friends, no shame, no dishonor. Just two people who tried and found it wasn't right. Liara's skin shifted to that golden color again. You would give me choice. Everyone deserves choice. Before she could respond, alarms began, blaring through the station. Security's voice came over the comm. All personnel, emergency stations, unknown vessels approaching, weapons charged. Through the cargo bay's viewport, Marcus could see 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace. They were Kaloran design but painted in dark colors with military markings. Vexar. Liara breathed. Those are second spiral military ships. He's not accepting defeat. The lead ship's broadcast echoed through the station. I am Lord Vexar of the second spiral. I claim salvage rights on this primitive station. Surrender the Princess Liara to her rightful mate or face the consequences. Marcus looked at Liara, then at the engine he'd just rebuilt. An idea began forming. Crazy, dangerous, and perfectly human. Sarah, he said into his comm, remember how I improved that engine's efficiency? I need you to get me to the stations. Main power core, I have an idea. Marcus. Liara grabbed his arm. What are you thinking? He grinned, the same reckless grin that had gotten him into this mess in the first place. I'm thinking it's time to show Lord Vexar what happens when you threaten my station, and more importantly, what happens when you try to force someone into something they don't want. The final choice, the station's power core, was a massive fusion reactor that took up 3 entire decks. Marcus had maintained its secondary systems for years, but he'd never been allowed near the primary controls, until now. Administrator Walsh, faced with 3 warships, had given Marcus emergency authorization to try whatever insane plan he'd concocted. You want to do what? Chief Engineer Morrison asked, her face pale as Marcus explained. The same thing I did with the Kaloran engine, but on a massive scale. Every system on this station operates at a specific frequency. If we can harmonize them the way Kaloran tech does, we'd either create the most efficient station in the galaxy or blow ourselves up, Morrison finished. Vexar's ships are built for standard combat, Liara added. She'd refused to leave Marcus's side despite security trying to escort her to a safe room. They expect energy weapons, shields, standard defensive responses. They won't expect whatever crazy thing Marcus is about to do, Sarah finished. Mr. Chen, you have maybe 20 minutes before those ships are in firing range. Marcus was already elbow-deep in control panels with Zix and 3 other human engineers following his rapidly delivered instructions. Liara, I need you to help me understand the harmonic frequencies your ships use. If I can match them, you could create a resonance feedback, she said, understanding immediately. But it would take enormous power, which is why we're going to turn the entire station into one giant harmonic amplifier. Morrison's jaw dropped. That's insane. That's human, Marcus corrected, connecting cables that were never meant to be connected. On the bridge, Administrator Walsh was trying to buy time. Lord Vexar, this is neutral territory. Your actions constitute an act of war against the Terran Alliance. I care nothing for your alliance, Vexar's voice boomed through the comms. "The princess belongs with her own kind, not some primitive mechanic. Surrender her and I might let your station survive." "I speak for myself." Layara's voice suddenly came through the comm. Marcus hadn't seen her activate the console. "I reject your claim, Vexar. Now and forever." "You don't have that." "Right," Vexar snarled. "Your father promised—" "My father promised nothing formally," Ambassador Theron's voice interrupted. He'd been silent until now, but something in his tone had changed. "And I find myself reconsidering many things. 15 minutes to weapons." "Range," Sarah announced. Marcus worked faster, his hands flying over controls while his mind raced through calculations. The station's various systems, life support, artificial gravity, shields, even the coffee makers in the break rooms, all operated on different frequencies. He needed to find the common harmonic that could unite them all. "There," Zix pointed at a reading. "That frequency, it's the base resonance of the station's superstructure." "Perfect." Marcus began adjusting every system to align with that frequency. Throughout the station, people noticed strange effects. Lights pulsing in rhythm, floors vibrating slightly, a low hum building in the walls. "Marcus," Layara said quietly, "what you're doing, it's beautiful. You're making the station sing." Paused to look at her, seeing something in those star-filled eyes he hadn't expected. Genuine admiration, maybe even affection. 10 minutes. "Almost there," Marcus muttered, making final adjustments. The station's hum grew louder, more musical. It really was singing now, a deep, resonant tone that seemed to make the very air shimmer. 5 minutes to weapons range. "Got it." Marcus slammed the final connection home. The station's song suddenly crystallized into perfect harmony. Every system, every component, every circuit was now operating in synchronized resonance. "What now?" Morrison asked. "Now we wait for them to fire," Marcus said, moving to the shield controls. "And when they do, we give them the surprise of their lives." On the bridge, Vexar's patience had run out. "Time's up. Target their power core. A crippled station will be easier to board." 3 beams of concentrated energy lanced out from the warships, but instead of hitting shields or hull, they hit something unprecedented, a station whose entire structure was vibrating in perfect harmonic unity. The energy beams struck the station's harmonized shields, and something impossible happened. Instead of being absorbed or deflected, the beams were caught in the harmonic frequency, amplified, and reflected back at exactly the opposite frequency needed to cancel them out. The attacks simply dissolved. "What?" Vexar's shock was audible over the comm. "Fire again! All weapons!" This time, dozens of beams struck the station, and this time Marcus was ready. He adjusted the station's harmonic frequency to match the incoming energy, then shifted it slightly. The energy was absorbed, converted, and redirected, not as a neo attack but as something else entirely. The space around Vexar's ships began to sing. The harmonic wave emanating from the station wasn't destructive, it was disruptive. Every system on the warships that relied on precise frequency calibration, which for Kaloran technology was everything, suddenly found itself fighting against an overwhelming harmonic interference. Lights flickered, engines sputtered, systems went offline. "It's like the station is singing their ships to sleep," Sarah said in amazement. "Impossible," Vexar raged. "No human could understand our technology well enough to—" "That's where you're wrong," Marcus said, having patched himself into the communication. "I don't need to understand all of it. I just need to understand that everything has a frequency and frequencies can be disrupted. It's basic physics, something humans have been playing with since we figured out how to make music." The warships were now dead in space, their systems completely scrambled by the harmonic interference. They'd need hours to recalibrate everything. "Lord Vexar," Ambassador Theron's voice carried the weight of authority, "you have attacked a neutral station and threatened my daughter. By Kaloran law, your titles are forfeit, your claims void. Return to the second spiral and never approach my family again." This isn't over, Vexar snarled. That human, Theron interrupted, just defeated 3 warships with nothing but ingenuity and a civilian station. Perhaps it's time you reconsidered your definition of strength. The comm channel closed. Slowly, awkwardly, the 3 disabled ships limped away into hyperspace. The station erupted in cheers. Engineers, diplomats, workers, everyone was celebrating. But Marcus barely heard them. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him exhausted and shaking. He found himself sitting on the floor of the power core, surrounded by the jury-rigged connections he'd created. Liara sat down beside him, her 7-foot frame folding gracefully. "You saved everyone," she said softly. "I just did what humans do," Marcus replied. "Found a solution that nobody expected." "Is that what you've done with us?" she asked. "Found an unexpected solution?" Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. Over the past few days, he'd stopped seeing her as an alien princess and started seeing her as Liara. Curious, brave, trapped by traditions she didn't believe in but couldn't escape. "I don't know," he admitted. "This whole thing started with me just trying to be nice. I didn't expect any of this." "Nor did I," Liara said. "But Marcus, I need you to know something. The food-sharing ritual, I could have warned you. I saw what you were about to do and I could have stopped you." Marcus turned to face her fully. "Why didn't you?" Her skin shifted to that golden color he was beginning to recognize as her version of a blush. "Because in that moment, watching you simply help someone because they needed help, without agenda or expectation, I wanted it to be real. I wanted to know what it felt like to be chosen for no reason other than kindness. And now I know you better. You're stubborn, reckless, too willing to risk yourself for others. You take ancient, perfect designs and make them imperfect in ways that somehow work better. You're nothing like what I was taught to want in a mate." Marcus's heart sank a little. "I understand. And that's exactly why I want to try your dating," she finished. "You've shown me that there are other ways to think, other ways to be. I want to learn more. About your people, your culture, and about you." Marcus felt a smile spreading across his face. "Even though I'm just a maintenance engineer who lives in a tiny room and has no idea what he's doing?" "Especially because of that," Liara said. "You've shown more courage and ingenuity in 3 days than most warriors show in a lifetime. And you did it not for glory or power, but because you thought it was right." Ambassador Theron approached them, his expression unreadable. "Marcus Chen," he said formally, "you have proven yourself worthy of my daughter in ways I did not expect. You've also shown me that perhaps our traditions need examining. Strength comes in many forms." He paused, then added with what might have been a smile. "The dating ritual you mentioned, I've researched it. It seems practical, getting to know someone before committing to a lifetime together. Perhaps humans understand something we've forgotten, so we can—" Liara looked between her father and Marcus. "You can proceed however you both choose," Theron said. "The bond stands as valid but incomplete. What you do with it is your decision." As the ambassador walked away, Zix approached with a grin. "Cousin, you certainly know how to pick them. A human who can make a station sing and disable warships with harmony? The family gatherings will never be boring again." Over the next few hours, as systems were restored and damage assessed, Marcus and Liara found themselves working side by side. She helped him understand the more complex Kaloran technologies, while he showed her human approaches to problem-solving. "Your people," Liara said as they recalibrated the shield generators. "They look at the universe and see not what is, but what could be. It's terrifying and wonderful." "And your people?" Marcus asked. "We see beauty in perfection, tradition, the preservation of what works. But perhaps we've been so focused on preserving that we've forgotten to grow." Sarah interrupted them with a laugh. "You two realize the entire station is taking bets on your first date, right?" Marcus groaned. "Let me guess, dinner is off the table?" "Actually," Liara said, that golden tint returning to her skin, I was thinking you could teach me about human food properly this time, without the accidental proposals. Deal, Marcus said. But I'm labeling everything first. This is just being polite. This means nothing. This is definitely not a marriage proposal. Liara laughed, a sound like harmonious bells that made several passing humans stop and stare. And perhaps I can teach you about Kaloran customs, the ones that don't involve lifetime commitments. Mr. Chen, Administrator Walsh's voice came over the comm. When you're done saving the station and charming alien princesses, I'd like to discuss your new position. New position? Head of Interspecies Technical Integration. We're creating it specifically for you. Someone who can bridge human and alien technology? That's invaluable. Plus, it comes with much larger quarters. In case you have tall guests. Marcus looked at Liara, who was trying not to smile. I think I'm going to like this new position. That evening, as the station returned to normal, Marcus stood in the observation deck where he usually ate lunch alone, but now Liara stood beside him watching the stars. So, she said, this dating ritual, what happens next? Usually, we spend time together, talk, learn about each other, share experiences, figure out if we're compatible. And if we are? Marcus thought about it. Then we take the next step. Whatever that looks like for a human and a Kaloran. A hybrid approach, Liara mused. Taking the best of both cultures and creating something new. Very human. Or very us, Marcus suggested. She took his hand, her 4 fingers intertwining with his 5 in a way that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. I like the sound of that, she said. Outside the viewport, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small dramas of the species that traveled between them. But on this station, in this moment, 2 people from different worlds had found something unexpected in each other, and it all started with a simple act of kindness in a cafeteria. Next time, Marcus said, I'm letting you get your own food. Liara laughed again, that beautiful harmonic sound. Next time, I'll know what to choose. They stood together, human and Kaloran, watching the universe turn and wondering what impossible things tomorrow might bring.